something strange is happening at Halas Hall, and the Chicago Bears would really like you not to notice. Because while the rest of the football world was busy enjoying its early summer break, the Bears front office was quietly making a phone call that absolutely nobody saw coming. They were reaching all the way down into the United Football League to drag a linebacker off the practice field in Columbus, Ohio, and straight onto an NFL roster. There was no press conference, no big announcement, just a name dropped on social media on a random Monday evening, leaving football fans everywhere asking the exact same question. Wait. Who? That name is Tony Fields II. And by the time you finish hearing this story, you are going to understand exactly why his sudden arrival in Chicago has insiders buzzing that something is very wrong in the Bears linebacker room. Exactly 6 weeks before training camp opens, that is not a coincidence anyone should be ignoring. Let us set the scene. It is the middle of June. The Bears have just wrapped up mandatory minicamp. These 3 days of practice are supposed to be the calm before the storm, the quiet tune-up before players scatter for a few weeks of vacation before training camp turns up the heat. Typically, teams use this window to get healthy, not to go shopping. And yet, the very week minicamp ends, the Bears go shopping anyway. They reach into a league that most casual fans do not even know still exists. Sign a linebacker nobody was talking about, and suddenly, the question on everyone's mind is simple. Why now? Why him? And more importantly, what aren't the Bears telling us? Here is what we do know. Tony Fields II is not some unknown want to be pulled off the street. This is a player with a real NFL pedigree who fell on hard times and is now clawing his way back. Frankly, his story alone is the kind of redemption arc that makes for great television. Fields started his college career at the University of Arizona, playing there from 2017 through 2019 before transferring to West Virginia for his final season in 2020. That performance was enough to convince the Cleveland Browns to use a 5th-round pick on him in the 2021 draft. And for a moment, it looked like Fields was on his way to becoming a long-term piece of Cleveland's defense. He spent 4 seasons with the Browns, appearing in 45 games and starting 10 of them. Along the way, he racked up 88 career tackles, a tackle for loss, 1 interception that went all the way back for a touchdown, and a pass breakup. But sometimes in the NFL, talent and opportunity do not line up the way they are supposed to. Fields found himself buried on special teams more often than featured on defense. Then, midway through the 2024 season, Cleveland made the call. He was cut. Just like that. A former 5th-round pick with real NFL game film was suddenly a man without a team. The Los Angeles Rams scooped him up on their practice squad for the rest of that year, and he hung around their off-season roster into 2025, fighting just to stay relevant in a league that chews up and spits out players who do not produce fast enough. But the chance never fully materialized. By the time the calendar flipped to 2026, Tony Fields II found himself somewhere very few former NFL starters ever expect to end up: the United Football League. A developmental league built almost entirely on stories exactly like his. Players trying to prove the NFL made a mistake letting them go. And prove it, he did, signing with the Columbus Aviators back in February. Fields put together a season that was nothing short of dominant by UFL standards. He started practically every game at middle linebacker, finished with 77 total tackles, which was good enough for second most in the entire league, and added 5 tackles for loss and a sack. By the end of the season, the league rewarded him with first-team All-UFL honors. This wasn't some guy padding stats in a forgotten minor league. This was a player putting together one of the most productive seasons by any linebacker in that entire competition, practically begging an NFL team to give him a second look. Now, look at the calendar. We are right around the 4-minute mark of our documentary, and before we dive into the dark reality of why the Bears made this move, I want to take a quick second to ask for your support. We put a massive amount of hard work and dedication into producing deeply researched documentaries like this for you. Every single subscription equals a wave of motivation for us to keep creating. If you are enjoying this deep dive, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, share this video with a fellow fan, and leave a comment below. It helps grow our community immensely, and we truly appreciate each and every one of you. So, on Monday, June 15th, the very first day NFL teams were legally allowed to sign players out of the UFL's offseason window, the Chicago Bears made their move. According to UFL insider Michael Del Negro, who broke the news, the Bears were among the first teams in the entire league to scoop up a UFL standout, and they did not hesitate. Fields had actually been quietly auditioning for the role days earlier, working out for Chicago on June 12th, before the ink ever hit the paper. That is not a team taking a flyer on a whim. That is a team that already knew exactly what it needed and exactly who it wanted to fill the gap. So, here is where the plot thickens. And here is the part of the story that should make every single Bears fan sit up a little straighter. Because on paper, Chicago's linebacker room should not need a single solitary thing. The front office spent real money this offseason rebuilding that position from the ground up. They released veteran Tremaine Edmunds to clear cap space, then turned around and signed former first-round talent Devin Bush to a 3-year, $30 million contract to take over as a centerpiece of the defense. They brought back DeMarco Jackson, last year's surprise fill-in starter, locking him into a long-term role. They re-signed a familiar face in Jack Sanborn after his one-year detour to Dallas. They even used a 5th-round draft pick on Arizona State linebacker Keyshawn Elliott, betting on fresh young talent to round out the room. Add it all up, and you have a linebacker core that, written down on paper, looks like one of the deepest, most talented units the Bears have fielded at that position in years. But here's the thing about paper. Paper does not get hurt. Players do. And right now, the real, living, breathing version of that linebacker room looks a whole lot shakier than the one general managers like to draw up on whiteboards in March. Let us walk through exactly who is banged up, because the list is, frankly, alarming. Start with DeMarco Jackson, the very player Chicago just extended as a projected starter. Jackson left the very first day of mandatory minicamp with what appeared to be a shoulder injury, and he did not return for either of the next 2 practice sessions. That is not a small detail. That is a projected starter disappearing for the entirety of a mandatory session that the league specifically designed for teams to evaluate their personnel before the real grind of camp begins. Then, there is rookie Keyshawn Elliott, the very player Chicago drafted just months ago to be part of this defense's future. He did not just miss a practice here or there. He missed all 3 days of mandatory minicamp entirely. That is an enormous loss of valuable on-field reps for a rookie who desperately needs every single one of them to acclimate to the speed of professional football before the lights get even brighter in September. Next up, Ruben Hippolyte, a 4th-round pick from a year ago who is already fighting an uphill battle just to make this roster after a difficult rookie season. He, too, was a no-show for all 3 minicamp practices. To make matters even murkier, nobody in the building has offered a clear public explanation for why. There is no update on what the injury is. No timeline. Just silence. It is the kind of silence that tends to make fans and reporters alike start asking very pointed questions. And then there is Noah Sewell, a name Bears fans already know to be cautious about. Sewell is still working his way back from a torn Achilles suffered in 2025, an injury that does not just sideline a player for a few weeks. It threatens to keep him out of the lineup for the start of the regular season entirely. His absence from minicamp wasn't a surprise, but it is still one more body off the field, one more name the Bears cannot currently count on. So, let us tally it up. 4 linebackers, every single one of them either competing for legitimate playing time or already projected to be part of the roster, all sidelined or limited at the exact moment the team is supposed to be finalizing its depth chart. That is not a footnote. That is a full-blown red flag waving directly over Hollis Hall. Now, to be fair, there is a silver lining buried in all of this, and it is an important one. T.J. Edwards, the veteran linebacker who suffered a fractured fibula late in the 2025 season during Chicago's dramatic wild-card comeback win over the Green Bay Packers, was back on the field for minicamp, participating fully in team drills. Edwards has reportedly told the team he expects to be at full strength well before training camp even begins, and his return to action is being treated as one of the most encouraging developments of the entire offseason for this defense. With Edwards healthy and Devin Bush locked in, the Bears do have a foundation to build around. But a foundation with 4 banged-up pieces around it is still a building under serious renovation. This is exactly why the timing of the Tony Fields signing matters so much. Teams do not typically dip into the UFL talent pool on a whim, especially not in the same week that mandatory minicamp wraps up. They do it when they look around the locker room and realize the depth chart they drew up back in March suddenly has more question marks than answers. Insiders have been blunt about it. The Bears are reportedly even keeping their eye on bigger names too, with some buzz around future Hall of Fame linebacker Bobby Wagner as a potential one-year bargain-priced addition given the uncertainty at the position. Whether or not that ever materializes, the mere fact that it is being discussed tells you everything you need to know about how seriously Chicago is treating this depth concern behind the scenes. So, where does that leave Tony Fields II? Realistically, his path to a regular spot on the 53-man roster is still an uphill climb. Analysts following the situation closely have pointed out that with Bush, Edwards, Jackson, and Elliott all considered safe bets once healthy, Fields is likely competing with players like Sanborn, Sewell, and Hypolite for what might be just one additional roster spot. His calling card has always been his impact on special teams, where he logged nearly 800 snaps during his time with Cleveland. And that special teams value could end up being exactly what keeps him relevant through training camp and preseason games, even if a starting role is out of reach. But make no mistake, this signing was not about adding a developmental project for the future. It was about adding an experienced, battle-tested body right now, a player who has already proven he can survive and even thrive against professional competition. He was brought in specifically because the alternative, rolling into training camp with 4 unresolved injury situations at one position, was simply too risky to leave unaddressed. And here is the twist that makes this whole story even juicier. The Bears front office has stayed almost completely silent on the why behind all of this. There is no statement explaining the injuries, no timeline on Hypolite or Elliott, no clarity on how serious DeMarco Jackson's shoulder issue really is. NFL teams are not required to disclose injury details outside of the regular season. And Chicago is taking full advantage of that. Which means fans are left piecing together the puzzle from minicamp absences, depth chart whispers, and one very telling roster move made the moment the front office had a clear opening to grab outside help. Will Tony Fields II be the steady depth piece that quietly saves Chicago's linebacker core from a training camp crisis? Will the injury situations clear up the moment players get a few extra weeks of rest before camp reopens? Or is this the first domino in a Bears off-season story that is about to get a whole lot messier before the season opener ever kicks off? Right now, absolutely nobody outside that building knows for certain. And that uncertainty is exactly what makes this storyline one to watch closely over the next several weeks. There is one more small but juicy detail before we wrap this up. The Fields signing wasn't even the only roster move buzzing around Halas Hall this week. The same day the news broke, reports surfaced that the Bears also brought in veteran wide receiver Christian Wilkerson for a workout. Wilkerson is a journeyman with stops in New England, Las Vegas, Tennessee, and Buffalo, holding a grand total of 6 career catches, 3 of which went for touchdowns. Whether that workout turns into anything remains to be seen. But it is one more sign that Chicago is leaving absolutely no stone unturned this offseason, scouring every corner of the football world for any possible edge before the games start to count. So, here is what we are watching for in the days and weeks ahead. Will DeMarco Jackson's shoulder clear up in time for training camp? Will Ruben Hypolite and Keyshawn Elliott finally get healthy enough to reclaim the reps they lost? And will Tony Fields II use this golden opportunity to author one of the great comeback stories of the 2026 NFL season, turning a UFL revival into a genuine return to the league that once let him go? Training camp will start answering these questions soon enough. But for now, the Bears linebacker room remains one of the most fascinating subplots of their entire offseason. As we reach the final minute of today's documentary, I want to remind you that bringing you these deep insights requires an incredible amount of hard work and dedication behind the scenes. We pour our hearts into keeping you informed. And every subscription gives us the motivation to keep grinding. If you want to stay ahead of every single Bears roster move, every injury update, and every shocking signing before the rest of the internet even catches wind of it, this is exactly the community you need to be a part of. Please hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like button, share this video, and drop a comment below letting us know who you think makes the final 53 at linebacker. Turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat as this Bears story continues to unfold. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next one.